When you think of superbikes, let's be honest, there are a few names that just instantly pop into your head. And right at the top of that list is Ninja. Today, we are diving deep into a true icon, the legendary Kawasaki ZX-10R.
And what better way to kick things off than with this? I mean, just look at it, the stunning 40th anniversary edition. This isn't just another motorcycle, you guys. This is what 4 decades at the absolute bleeding edge of performance looks like, all wrapped up in a paint job that just screams racing history.
You know, sometimes the simplest phrases hit the hardest. Kawasaki's own words right here really say everything you need to know. It's not just marketing fluff, it's a statement of fact. This bike's been a benchmark, a total game changer, and a champion right from the very beginning. So to really get the ZX-10R, we've got to rewind a bit. The whole Ninja nameplate, it just exploded onto the scene way back in 1984 with the GP-Z900R. And for 40 years since, it's been the name synonymous with cutting-edge, face-melting performance. The journey here is just incredible. It all started with that revolutionary GP-Z900R in '84. Then you have Scott Russell taking the World Superbike Championship in '93 on that iconic green, white, and blue ZX-7R. But 2013, man, that was the real turning point. That's the year the modern ZX-10R started an era of racing dominance that's almost hard to believe. Which brings us right here to today's 40th anniversary bash.
So how does a bike stay at the very top of its game for so long? Well, the answer is technology. But let's be real. You look at a modern spec sheet and you're hit with this crazy alphabet soup of acronyms. It's time we figured out what it all means.
And that's the key question, right? You see all these letters thrown around, but what do they actually do for you, the rider? How does a feature list turn into a faster, safer, and just more thrilling ride? Well, let's dive in.
Okay, first up, KLCM. Think of this as your own personal launch director. Kawasaki's launch control mode basically manages all the tricky stuff for you. It stops wheel spin, keeps the front end from lifting, so all you have to do is hold the throttle wide open and get a perfect rocket ship launch. Every single time.
Next is KQS, the Kawasaki Quick Shifter. And folks, this is an absolute game changer. It lets you bang up through the gears without ever pulling the clutch or even thinking about rolling off the throttle. Yeah, it was designed for the racetrack to shave off milliseconds, but trust me, it makes every single ride, everywhere, that much smoother.
All right, let's talk about SKTRC. Now, this is not your average everyday traction control. No way. The S stands for Sport, and this is a super advanced system with 5 different modes. It's so smart that it actually lets the rear wheel slide just a little bit, helping you steer the bike with the throttle to get faster, tighter exits out of corners. It's pure race-bred intelligence. Now here's a piece of tech that might just save your bacon one day. CMF, or Cornering Management Function. You know that feeling when you have to grab the brakes mid-corner and the bike tries to stand up and run wide? CMF stops that from happening. It cleverly adjusts the brake pressure when you're leaned over, helping the bike stick to its line like it's on rails. So what's in charge of all this electronic magic? Meet the IMU, the Inertial Measurement Unit. It is the big boss. It's the brain, the central nervous system of the entire bike. It's constantly measuring everything, lean angle, pitch, roll, acceleration, and feeding all that information to the other systems so they work together in perfect harmony. It is the secret sauce that makes it all possible.
Okay, so the bike is absolutely stuffed to the gills with incredible technology. But here's the million-dollar question. Does all that fancy electronic wizardry actually translate to winning races? Well, let's look at the proof.
The proof is right here, in one single powerful number, 7. That is how many FIM Superbike World Championships the Kawasaki ZX-10R has won since 2013. That's not just success, that is utter, complete domination.
And the story behind that number is a true dynasty. One rider, Jonathan Rea, won 6 of those titles back-to-back and became the first person ever to get over 100 race wins in the series. But here's the most important part. The technology we just talked about wasn't cooked up in some lab. It was forged in the heat of battle on the world's racetracks and then passed directly to the bike that you can go out and buy.
But here's the thing about a legend. It never rests on its laurels. After a decade of total dominance, how do you possibly stay on top? You evolve. And for the Ninja, the next chapter is already being written for 2026.
So the most obvious change for 2026? Those aggressive aerodynamic winglets. And they're not just for looks. They generate a massive 25% more downforce, which means way more stability at high speeds. Inside the cockpit, you get a new, bigger 5-inch full-color screen with different layouts for the road and the track. And up front, they've repositioned the Ram air intake, giving the bike a fresh, even meaner look.
But look, you can't talk about the ZX-10R in a vacuum. You just can't. You have to talk about its biggest rival. And that brings us to the ultimate showdown, the raw, track-focused Ninja versus Germany's precision-engineered powerhouse, the BMW S1000R.
All right, let's start with the hard numbers. On paper, these two are incredibly close. The BMW is about 10 kilos lighter and has a tiny edge in claimed top speed. The Kawasaki, on the other hand, has a slightly taller seat, which kind of hints at its more aggressive, track-focused riding position. But really, the numbers don't tell the whole story.
This is the heart of it, right here. The riding experience. The Kawasaki is just a raw racing machine. It feels incredibly planted and stable when you're flying through high-speed corners, with a high-revving screamer of an engine and legendary feedback from the front end. The BMW, on the other hand, feels like the ultimate smart bike. It's lighter, more flickable, its shift cam engine gives you more punch in the mid-range, and its electronics are so smooth you barely even know they're working.
So what about actually living with one of these things? For a lot of people, it comes down to value, and that's where the Kawasaki usually has an edge on price and maintenance costs. But the BMW fights back with more standard tech packed in, and, this is a big one, a far superior 5-year warranty.
Which brings us to the final question, and it's a big one. This is more than just picking a motorcycle. It's about picking a philosophy. Do you go for the raw, visceral, track-honed weapon with a championship pedigree? Or do you choose the refined, technology-packed smart bike that makes insane speed feel almost effortless? There's no wrong answer. There's only your answer.